Yolla by Cassander Garduna. Chapter 2. The Boy, the Beast, and the Forgetting Plant. The dark forest was enormous, old, and intimidating. Yolla hesitated at its border. Though it may be madness, if I am ever to have peace, I must find where I belong, thought Yolla, as she stepped forward into the shade of the old growth of the pine and cedar that danced in step together back and forth with the wind. She continued to follow the stream, which had greatly widened deeper into the wild. I can always follow this stream back out if I feel unwelcome, she thought. As she lost sight of the open field, she realized the shadow of this forest had substance. It hugged her where light retreated, and she felt comfortable in its embrace. After she had walked for some time, she found a tree to rest against, and went to sleep. When she awoke, she was covered in a blanket of snow, and a thick smoke filled the air. Cold, confused, and disoriented, she got up and brushed the snow from her long coat. The snow-covered forest looked like a beautiful woman in a new white gown, no longer the warm green she had fallen asleep in. She looked at the frozen stream, and dumbstruck, she couldn't remember which way she had been following it. She chose left at random and began walking. Not far down the stream, she came to a diluvian pool the water had cut out of the sandstone and red clay mud. She heard a drumming and saw a boy under the ice beating against the wall of his glassy prison. She jumped down to the outer rim of the pool and picked up a stone. "I'll get you out," she yelled. She beat the ice with the stone and swiftly broke through, and, like a midwife, pulled the small urchin from the ice as she might a baby from its mother. He wore naught but dirty, grass-stained rabbit-skin trousers. He shivered in her arms. His hair was dark and curly, his skin was of an olive complexion, his eyes big and wild. "Here," she said, as she wrapped her long coat around his small frame. The coat hung down and dragged on the ground behind him as he suddenly, without provocation, marched around like a tiny soldier, stomping his dirty, calloused feet into the snow. "Why the long face, Yolla?" Surprised by this question, she hesitated to answer. "I am the rumbling thunder and the restless wind. I am the sand castle the greedy waves cannot take. I am the urchin heart. I am forever, now, and never. I am Nak-Nak, which means no-no." "How do you know my name?" asked Yolla. "I heard your song before you were a thought, dear moon," answered Nak-Nak. "We have always been together. Did you see the other children throw stones? Did you watch me wet the bed? Did you see my mother leave me? Will you be my mother?" Yolla did not know how to answer, and as the smoke grew thicker, everything became more dreamlike. "When you go up there, Yolla, you will have a fine view." "Up where?" asked Yolla. Nak-Nak did not answer, but began to convulse and vomit purple bile and mucus. Yolla heard a howl and looked away, and in that second Nak-Nak disappeared. "Nak-Nak? Little one?" Yolla looked about, but the boy was gone. Yolla coughed into her hand and continued to follow the stream. The snow suddenly stopped and let the warm green back in. The smoke stung her eyes, and her throat was now raw from coughing, but she felt a strange euphoria coming over her. She thought wild thoughts. Her daydreams materialized before her as if in this moment she could reach out and touch them. Soon the night descended upon the dark forest, leaving Yolla to wander aimlessly in the pitch. The insects sang their love songs, and the bats, like toothy black kites, had their fill of the unfortunate little ones. In the distance, Yolla saw a light flicker, and so, through the twisting thickets, she followed this beacon, hoping it might be someone's campsite. She approached slow and cautiously, not knowing what she might find. And there she saw Nagku the wild man, the unlearning beast, the ascetic of the driftwood people, throwing large plants on a fire. She immediately noticed he wore her coat. The long coat was almost too small for the beast. It looked older now, worn and dirty. Nagku's face was white, ash-covered, round, and vacant of any emotion. "Excuse me," said Yolla, "do you know the way out of this forest?" Nagku slowly looked over in her direction, but did not speak. "Excuse me, sir, I don't mean to be a bother, but I have gotten myself lost," said Yolla. From Nagku's throat a low growl rumbled, and he put his hands over his ears as if her voice hurt him somehow. "Please, sir, advise me," said Yolla forcefully. "My words would only poison you, darling," replied Nagku, annoyed. "Look, look," he said, as he drove his hands into the darkness that mimicked his beastly form, and ripped his own shadow from the ground and presented it to Yolla. "See? Look, girl, how the shadow has skin. It's just language, a language I must forget." Nagku put more plants on the fire and breathed in the smoke. "You think yourself brave because you wander through the dark without fear?" Nagku laughed. "Have you seen the world in the light? No, not really, not really. Count yourself blessed that you are too ignorant to know what to fear." Insulted, Yolla began to reply, but Nagku interrupted. "Shh! My dear moon, don't speak. Your words would only poison me." Yolla felt something land on her shoulder and then whisper into her ear. "Quiet, grandchild. Quickly, come with me," said the old firefly. And then, with unnatural strength, or possibly some unheard-of magic of the tiny luminiferous insect, the old firefly began lifting Yolla higher and higher into the air. Startled, Yolla screamed, "What are you doing?" And as they took off up towards the night sky, she heard Nagku say one last thing. "Yolla, why the long face?" "It's okay, grandchild, I have you," said the old firefly. "You cannot play near Nagku, little one. Oh, that poor troubled beast that knows too much but not enough. What a curse." They sat down some distance away by a large hollowed-out tree with a little door and a little window. The once tiny firefly glowed bright yellow-green all over, and to Yolla's surprise, all at once became a very small, very old little man. "Thank you, I think. I have gotten myself lost in this dark forest," said Yolla. "Yes, yes, what happened to your light, grandchild?" said the old man, with a kind and loving face. "My light? I have no light." "Yes, yes, I can see that. From injury or birth you haven't any light at all. Not of your own, I mean. But I can fix this. You're not my first little one to lose its light." The old man went into his tiny house and began to dig through his cabinets. "Here," he said, as he found a small lantern. He then took a piece of its own light, that bright yellow-green glow, and put it in the lantern. "This will help you," he said, and he handed the lantern to Yolla. "Now go play, child. This will help you find your way." This time, Yolla played along and said, "Okay, thank you, grandfather." I certainly don't belong in there, she thought, and with her newly gifted light, she was able to leave the dark forest, where the shadows had embraced her.